a pro fighter now. Kenny, where did you fight pro?
How you doing, guys? Check. As Jim's saying, I'm a pro fighter now. I fight all over. I do my own touring, my own promotion, my own sponsorships. I fought Atlantic City, I fought California. I did a TV show, a reality show in Mexico, which nobody knows about because it's not sanctioned in New York. So they're not going to televise it, they're not going to advertise it. And these are things that I need. MMA is my passion, it's my sport, and that's my passion. And if I can't live in my own state and make my own money, then what's the point of being here? As Jim said, I fought in the underground UCL combat. I fought many tough fighters, many pro fighters, and it wasn't like, a fight club and just everybody beat the crap of each other. It's not 15 years ago like UFC was. We're trying to get a sanction in New York, and it's just hard to come by. For me, as a pro fighter, I have to do my own promotion, my own sponsorship, so I have to travel for fights, put my own money in for my own traveling expenses.
Where do you have to travel to fight?
I've been in Pennsylvania, Philadelphia, Atlantic City. I drove 7 hours to Virginia to beat a guy in a minute 20 seconds and then drive back home for 7 hours. I don't want to do that. What's the sense of going 7 hours for a 1 minute fight when I can take a trade, MSG, knock him out, celebrate here? There's no point of going to Virginia. There's nothing over there. That's my point. We live in the greatest city in the world, supposedly, but we're the only state not to have MMA. A lot has changed over the decade. I've been with Jim over the past few years. He's watched me grow as a fighter from amateur to pro, and I've been doing this myself. You guys don't know me because there's no advertising about MMA in New York. Now that amateur fighting's here, we're hoping the sanctioned bodies pass the law, and hopefully more pro fighters like myself can make a name for ourselves and keep going up.
Manny, how has the ban affected you? I know that you've been a big supporter of the sport here, even at the underground level. You've been selling your clothes. You've sponsored a belt at the UCL. Talk a little bit about that.
Basically,
I think you have to talk really with your mouth right up to it. Don't be shy.
all right, basically, I've been doing this too since 2007. And I run into a lot of fighters, and everybody tells me the same thing. We need to be New York.
You guys hear him?
Basically, I run into these fighters every other week, and they're telling me we need it in New York. We need this now. And I feel bad. And I'm doing it myself. I would love to sponsor you guys. I would like to push them, but I would love to do it in New York. And the issue is, it's happened over about the years. MMA, believe it or not, is one of the safest sports in the United States. Anyway, I think number 2, right? Number 1 is low. But anyway, in general, we need this in New York. We have great fighters coming out of New York. Wide range, great schools. Manny, I've been following Manny since 07. I grappled them a couple of times, choked me out. But you know, I'm the clothing company that I want to keep with the fighters. I want to keep with the fighters. I want to know how it feels to be a fighter, to support the fighters. It's not about the money. I just want each fighter to go together, you know, of course, bring more money in general to New York. It's not about everybody in the UFC.
Mike, I know that the UFC has gone on record saying that they would do 4 shows a year here in New York once it's legalized. But how has the ban affected the UFC at all?
Well, the ban, you know, New York is New York. New York has always been, especially New York City, Madison Square Garden, the capital of all sports. All the premier fights, all the premier sporting events have all taken place here in New York. So that does hurt the UFC. The other thing, too, is that we're regulated in 49 out of 50 jurisdictions. And a lot of people ask the question, why aren't they regulated in New York? The other crazy thing about all this, and this is kind of a second or a side note, is that MMA fighting is taking place. It's taking place right now. It's taking place tonight. And the craziest thing about it, and especially when it comes to a policy standpoint, is that until you pay the athlete, then it's illegal. So it's not like this is not taking place in New York at all. It's taking place on a very large level. The unfortunate thing, it's hurting the fighters. It's hurting the people who are involved, not just at the professional level or the amateur level, but then also the people who own gyms here. They have an incredible amount of not just UFC branded gyms, but MMA gyms. And that hurts their business because it's sort of looked down upon because it isn't regulated at the professional level. And that's a big disappointment. So when it comes to answering your question, Jim, about the UFC and how it impacts us, it does impact us a lot, just not here in New York, but also nationally because we're not regulated in one jurisdiction in the United States, but then also internationally. People are asked the question, why aren't they regulated in New York? Why is it banned? Why is it outlawed in New York? And it does take a big effect on us, and not just us, the UFC, but other promoters in the business on the professional level.
Phoenix and Mark, you guys are longtime journalists here. How has the ban affected you guys?
Well, it's definitely affected our ability to, well, I hate commuting, so we can just say that easily. Like, I love Jersey. Jersey's like New York's cousin. We make fun of each other, but we still visit on the weekends. It's like that type of situation. But it would be great to experience this in my hometown. And I have emotional feelings about my connections to MMA because I am a woman. And if it is not regulated in New York, my friends who don't understand the sport say, well, there's got to still be something wrong with it. Like, why are you doing that? There still must be something wrong with it if it's not regulated. And I think, yes, it's bureaucratic stuff that causes this problem, but it makes me question a lot of things about society, about the fact that we don't fight for things anymore. We don't push for things anymore. If getting this ban lifted had to do with Facebook likes, we would totally have it lifted already. But actually pushing and doing something about it as New Yorkers, we've come to a level of complacency with certain things. So you go to a rally and maybe there's like 5 people and I'm one of them, you know? And I have to answer to a lot of the questions that I don't like answering, which is, well, it's so violent and it's so violent and it's so well, it's not regulated, so it's so violent and you're a woman and they're bad to women. And I'm like, I don't see any of that. Because I think there's a difference between, there's fans of martial arts and there's fans of violence. And I'm trying to appeal to martial arts fans, people who respect these guys and women as very hardworking athletes. So now when I refer to the fighters, I don't even call them fighters anymore, because the people who aren't sensitive to our sport and understand that the word fighter, we associate with a ring, with regulations, with gloves, with a bell ringing. They associate fighting with violence. So I call them MMA athletes. They're athletes, and these athletes deserve to fight, and they deserve to participate in their sport. So it's hurting gym owners because people are still cringing at MMA. They're still cringing. And to me, that's weird, because MMA has given me everything that I have and all the great things that I have. Maybe not my bank account, but a lot of my experiences. So it's affected me emotionally because I wind up fighting people's opinions all the time. I wind up fighting for the fact that I am a martial artist. I'm a spiritual person that trains in a physical, very physically demanding sport. I know how to protect myself. I know how to feel good about myself. So it's affected me, yes, financially, but you know, but emotionally, I'm constantly at odds with how I have to explain it to people. You know, I hope that answered your question because I just monologued.
I think it was nice.
Okay.
What do you people think? Mark, how has this ban affected you?
I guess I could take the contrarian viewpoint that, in a way, it's helped me because every couple of years I have a very easy story to write about. Well, we still don't have MMA in New York, and the politicians are not doing their job, and it's utterly ridiculous. And when will this finally get passed? Which is a very easy story. I can just recycle it every year and essentially publish the same thing. Yeah. But on a more serious note, it does affect me the same way I'm sure it affects Kenny as a fighter, or any of the people that own gyms or want to promote it here, that it hurts your business. If it was legal here and they were conducting professional fights every week or two the same way they do with professional boxing, there would obviously be more opportunity for journalists. And certainly it would be good for the people who own gyms, who train fighters, the people who promote fights, the fighters themselves who can fight in front of their hometown. So obviously it does have a negative effect, and it's not just a personal effect, it's an economic effect. If you had If the UFC brought in a show to Madison Square Garden, that would be a pretty good economic windfall for the city. A lot of people travel from all over the country to see the UFC. I'm sure some of the people here probably go out to wherever, Las Vegas or Texas, to see UFC shows. And if we had it here, those people from Las Vegas, from Texas, from California, they would be coming here, they would be spending their tax dollars here. So it doesn't help anybody at this point to not have it.
For years,